So Troy, here at the 10K Project, we cover all the stages on the spectrum as it relates to financial literacy, right? Some of us
Okay, out
know
of Chicago.
some of us know a lot about it, some of us know a little about it, some of us don't know anything about it. What would you recommend for the members that we have that are at those different levels? Someone who knows nothing versus someone who is kind of moderately educated, but they're still really trying to figure out what the best things to invest in, and they're building that portfolio. What would your advice be?
First thing is just to start reading the journals. Just you have to be an avid consumer of information. Wall Street Journal, New York Times business section, marketwatch.com, Yahoo Finance. Just start reading. Investopedia, you just have to start reading. That's number one. I think a great starting place for books, anything written by this, I'll put it in the chat, Peter Lynch. I just quoted him a minute ago. So Peter Lynch is retired now, but when he was active up until, I want to say maybe 2000 and something, he was the manager of what was then the world's largest mutual fund. It was the Fidelity Magellan Fund. Peter Lynch was very famous for just keeping things simple. He would always say, just invest in things you know. Like one of his famous investments was, only us older folks would remember this, but there used to be a brand of pantyhose that used to be sold at the cash register at supermarkets in a little egg-shaped thing called Legs. Mm-hmm. That was his wife that told him about that. She was like, you need to look at this. And so he would always say, invest in things you know. And Peter Lynch has written, I want to say 4 books at least, and they're all about beating the markets, investing in this, walking down the supermarket aisles. He makes it very simple. And Peter Lynch was one of the best investors that we have ever known. And his whole point was, again, that quote, if you've done math up to 4th grade, you can beat the markets. So I would definitely start with reading Peter Lynch books. He breaks down fundamental analysis in a very easy, clear to understand way. So in terms of books, I would definitely start there. But again, a lot of it's also just getting comfortable with the jargon. And that's just, Yahoo Finance, Investopedia, just every day. Eventually you'll get it. Otherwise, after this, I'll leave my email and just hit me up. WallStreetBound, we're doing it all, but I'm more than happy to just take emails and chats and just help people along. Because again, my mission, this is my life's mission, to get us up to speed, because we have 400 years behind the ball here.
Mm. Absolutely. Well, so you mentioned the crypto economy, and I'm a bit of a crypto enthusiast myself. Cherie is. We actually started a group called the Black Blockchain Consultants.
Uh-oh.
What's your thought? What's your thought about crypto and blockchain?
My thought. Okay, so I can't say that I'm that well informed, even though I was very active. I actually ran a blockchain project in Tokyo up to 2019 before I came home. So I would say this, my sense is that we are in internet, let's call it 1994 to 7. Okay. So it is clear that the blockchain technology itself is here to stay. In terms of mass adoption, I think it's clearly yet to be seen beyond trading applications. Blockchain, a lot of interesting things have been done and are being done. But again, in terms of mass adoption, we haven't really seen it yet. So crypto itself, until, this is only my opinion and my humble opinion, until crypto is decoupled from the trading aspect, and until crypto prices are coupled with revenues of the actual blockchain projects, I think it will remain just that, a new trading asset class. I would not yet call it investment class. Okay. When Bitcoin, which is the grandmother of them all, can lose 20% in one day, that is not what we'd call a store of value, a store of wealth. You can argue with me, you can have a different opinion, but in my humble opinion, the blockchain technology itself is here to stay. That's the internet. But do we know if it's going to be a pets.com or an Amazon? Yet to be seen. So to the degree that I think there's some data out there that shows that we as Black people actually adopt crypto more than we do traditional asset classes, which is interesting to me, but that just means that we're open for something new and different because we aren't traditionally served by the wealth building capacity and ability of traditional stocks, bonds, et cetera, because we just don't know.
Mhm.
But this crypto thing is in all our faces every day. Like whatever age you are, somewhere is, we take Bitcoin now. So I think it's yet to remains to be seen. Technology itself is here, but crypto is beyond just trading, and I think it's still early days.
Very good. Thank you for that. Hold on. Looks like we have a question in the chat. Let's see what she says. Beulah says, how much to put into crypto? Is this online only or through banks or credit unit? I think she means union.
Yeah. So again, with that comment in mind, I would say it can be argued that outside of Bitcoin, maybe all of crypto could, if not should be looked as speculative investment, but it's not investment, speculative. So I would say if you are interested in learning this market, only put in or play with money that you are willing and able to lose and not care about. Now, there are multiple exchanges. Obviously, Coinbase is the big one now. Gemini, some of the big names that are following the regulatory path. A lot of them are small, offshore. That's a whole nother trip. You want to put into some exchange, it's offshore. Next thing you know, you're getting a call from the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. So only money that you're willing to lose and you would laugh about. I would think of it at this point, just think of it as a casino. But again, that's just my opinion. Long term, there are many that would argue against it based on specific crypto projects. But your actual tokens themselves, unless you are very well informed of the projects, of the inside holders, people don't know there's something called whales, big holders, insiders that are moving these tokens around that you are not privy to, and they're buying and selling amongst themselves, just like a game, like ping pong, and everyone else gets caught in the middle. That's just old school, we call manipulation. So only money you're willing to lose, that is manipulation 101, just as it was when the markets were the wild, wild west before the SEC in 1933.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say research the teams, research the project itself, research the use case. Don't just buy a coin because the internet says buy a coin, right? So definitely do some research. Chris says, I know the answer, but do you lean towards the market or real estate as a solid investment?
Again, that's a tricky question. Number one, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would say this. It is very clear, Federal Reserve has data for days that a large part of the wealth transfer in America is through property values. We as a people are far behind on our home ownership participation rates. So traditionally speaking, single family homes appreciate approximately, I think it's a 7% rate annualized. And why that's so important for building wealth is because it's a way to have leveraged investment. Everyone knows you put down whatever, your 3 to 10% on your home, you're able to borrow the rest and buy this multiple $100,000 asset for little down. But it's a stable asset because it's the home you live in and it appreciates value over time. So what is better? That's hard to say. I could take a certain stock or other investment, adjust for volatility, adjust for interest rates, et cetera. And over long term, you could plot that out. But I would say it's hard to say which is better unless you're looking backwards and say, okay, it's hard to say looking forward because obviously, it's hard to project forward what your returns will be on certain asset classes. But on your home, generally, if you are not over leveraged, if you didn't buy at the top of the market, you will be okay in the long term. But it's hard to say without having specific data. So it really, again, depends on what your own financial plan is, your own wherewithal. I'm not a financial advisor, hard question, but overall, the data is clear that home ownership is a large contributor to the wealth transfer in America.
Okay, very good. And that's another area where Black people are behind in home ownership. So, that's something that we definitely need to consider changing. So as you guys are listening to this and you heard what Troy just said, please consider that asset class, because I know, I just read an article not too long ago where it just gave some of the statistics about how many Black people still rent, and instead of purchasing a home. And the number was staggering. I wish I could remember what the article was, but the number was staggering. I was like, really? I found it I was shocked by it, that the number was so low.
Yeah.
It made me think, I wonder what that mindset is that keeps us in the rental space. Is it that we, don't believe we can afford a home? Maybe we're not educated on the programs that are available, and just so many things came to mind. But, I think that's an area where we need to do better for ourselves, because that is a great way to build wealth and to leave it to your generations, right? It's an asset you pass on.
That's right. That's right. Especially when in this era of low interest rates, depending on how much home you're looking to buy, half the time the amount you're paying in rent could cover your mortgage. So I think for a lot of us, I think the data is what the average American family has $500 in the bank or can't even afford one medical emergency. So I might argue that for a lot of us, it's getting our heads wrapped around the sacrifice and the time it takes to save up for that down payment.
Save the down payment.
But that's a mindset, that's something I think we have to work towards, that it's a sacrifice, and that down payment, if it takes years. But again, we don't grow up with this idea, with this education from birth, that is what it takes. That idea to sacrifice for years is what is required. That's not what we grew up with. Because you get a paycheck, you rent in your place, you get comfortable. You're like, yo, my crib is cool. Like, I don't own it, but like, I'm good. Mm-hmm. As opposed to thinking that is consumption versus investing. But I would start to argue that potentially that it's that mindset of making the sacrifice for years if required to save for that down payment is where a lot of us sort of where we stumble.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Robin Mansell says NACA.com gives the down payment. So that's that education piece, right? To know that there are programs out there that mitigate some of the challenges we think we have. So I'll say that again, NACA.com gives the down payment. Thank you, Robin. That's awesome. Great information there.